Hi everyone, welcome to Ferncast Post-IBC webinar. I'm Virginie from Ferncast Marketing. Thank you for joining us today. We are pleased to have you here. We are back from the IBC with some exciting news to share with you. Our booth was located in the Hall 8 and we had a dedicated demo area where we could demonstrate our latest innovative features. Our Ferncast expert, Thomas, Tobias, Bernd, Florian, were on hand to demonstrate innovative features like AI moderation voice, loudness control, and immersive audio. It generated a lot of interest, and we are really pleased to share some highlights with you today. The key highlight for us was the Red Tech Award. Our technology, the Ferncast Next Generation Loudness Control, won the Red Tech Awards, and we could not be more proud and happy, of course, especially as it was also covered in the IBC Daily News this year. So it was a great recognition for the team. In today's session, we will be diving into the new features and enhancement of aixtream, our innovative audio streaming solution. We will cover some key highlights, showcase latest features, and discuss how aixtream can optimize your audio workflow. This webinar will last 45 minutes, like usually, and there will be a live Q&A session at the end. Feel free to drop your question in the chat anytime during this webinar. You will also get a chance to win a Ferncast polo that you can see on the photo. So please stay tuned. The question is coming soon. And last information, I will be sending you in a few days a recording of this webinar. Let me introduce now the speakers of the day. Bernd Geiser, Senior Audio Engineer at Ferncast, Detlef Wiese, Ferncast CEO, and Tobias Dornbusch, our product expert. Let's have a look at the agenda. First, Detlef Wiese will kick off things with an aixtream overview, giving you some insight on the platform capabilities and an overall vision. Then we will dive into the latest aixtream features with a focus on the latest release, 3.9 on aixtream. And then Bernd Geiser will go deeper in the next generation loudness control. And he will also give some latest customer update and use cases. Tobias will then dive into the innovative immersive audio features and explaining our collaboration with Dolby Atmos. And at the end, you will get some update on the fernReport. I will leave the floor now to Detlef Wiese, who is going to give you an aixtream overview.
Thank you, Virginie, for this nice introduction, and a very warm welcome from our Munich office, which actually does not have the high temperatures anymore as we were used to in the last weeks. I'm looking to the participants today, and also a nice greeting in all of parts of the world. I see lots of from Germany, Europe, but also South America, and I see actually also down under Australia, so very far away in a completely different time zone. So a very warm welcome. So on the next slide, we see that our slogan, we optimize and revolutionize your audio logistics. We are your audio logistics company. And actually, when we started more than 5 years ago with the Ferncast, our objective has been to develop purely software and to develop a software which gets rid of hardware and lots of hardware pain in the radio market. So we say that no matter where your audio needs to go, no matter in what format. We help you get it there in the highest quality and with the most modern processes. That's actually what our software is doing, and where also we have learned and see continuously that it is growing, that the footprint is growing, and that we get more and more applications. Let me just briefly summarize about aixtream, our software. 24/7 software for a variety of applications. It can run on a variety of platforms, whether this is ARM, Intel, or Raspberry Pi. It can run in a virtual machine, in a Docker container, so there's a variety of possibilities to use it. Here you see two examples, running it on a generic server, or also running it on a RESTpad for portable use in the fields of commentators and reporters. The features of aixtream on the 24/7 audio workflow, you can see in the next slide, just a very brief summary. And I think when Tobias will talk about the news things over the last month or the last year since last IBC, he will get much more, I think, in detail. But I think what is the key thing on our aixtream platform, which is more or less like a matrix with inputs, outputs, and with generic implementation of features, so that most of the customers really can benefit from our growth, which is very much customer driven. So it's really a maximum of efficiency and flexibility, to be very careful with CPU usage and storage, very scalable, so we can go from very low but to a high amount of audio channels. And audio channels just doesn't mean inputs, but it means also to create new channels out of a certain number of inputs. You can, of course, use it in your preferred environments with your audio I/O, whatever that is, whether this is still more classical, analog, digital, or is AES67 and LiveWire and audio via IP. And there is a huge amount of application. I mean, we have started with streaming, but now it goes far beyond. And in the combination that it runs on any platform, on any hardware platform, it gives our customers really a lot of areas they can use it. And I would say aixtream is a problem solver, so makes complex scenarios more easy, and gives the customers a much easier operating interface for covering their daily challenges. Yeah, this might be also something a bit more for Tobias later, but I mean, I think we got a bit, let's say, famous because of our pipe concept, which gives you easy access. So there are pipe elements. Actually, behind each pipe element, sometimes there can be an enormous amount of parameter settings. It can be enormous complex, but the appearance to the user is pretty easy. So you can drag and drop pipe elements however you like to create your chain, to create your transmission chain from the source to the sink, and that makes the feeling operating it more intuitive and easy. And that's what we like. We like to grab complex situations, complex challenges, but then turn them with our UI into a simple way to operate it in the daily process. There's sound processing within, as well as lots of encoding capabilities, protocol capabilities, and of course also features, lots of features which deal with the encoded material, with stored material, and to really create a workflow which fits to the customer needs. What we also can say is, and that's also something I may add to the report about the IBC, that now in our 6th year, which is not completed yet, but that the feedback we are getting, and also the amount of cooperation in the field with CDNs, with scheduling software systems, with monitoring management systems, is increasing. So that means the need to actually work with us is getting higher, because our footprint and our amount of applications is getting higher. On my last slide, I would like to just dive in quickly in the area of applications. And it looks, that we do lots of things, or like all of the things which are needed in radio, but I think this is a specific selection of applications where a software which is defined for a very robust 24/7 operation can be used in all those areas. So while we started with streaming and then added something like multiplexing in the DVB area and then further moved to podcasting, now there's much more, I mean, contribution links. We talk about AES-67 and redundant streaming. We talk in the communication about SIP and WebRTC. So it got really broad in this amount of time. And if we look where we started, we were able, with all the team we have, the team brought a huge amount of expertise from their PhDs and from their background. We started already with a serious amount of code lines, but now have increased this. So totally, there's more than 50 person years which moved already into this software, and the amount of workflows is huge. What's interesting, I think, we are a software company, but of course we support also your needs when it comes to hardware, when it turns into, how can I use it? What's the minimum requirement? I mean, and what is the maximum I can do with it? So on the minimum side, we offer, for instance, the Fernbox, which is the application of Xstream running on a mini PC, on a NOC. And on the other hand, if you want to scale, we also do recommendations about very, very powerful and with a heavy CPU load provided hardware for managing lots of lines in transmission. Studio transmitter links are interesting as well. So we support all those protocols in that area. I think might be on the list of Tobias later, with lots of functions. I think he will fill probably the applications, which are just a title here, with functions we have developed and where we have improved Xstream during the last 12 months. So I think I can give the word back to Virginie.
Yeah, thanks, Detlef. It's time for our quiz now. So I hope everybody is concentrated, because, of course, we need the right answer, but also you need to be quite fast, because it will be the first answer who will win the Ferncast Polo. So now here is a question: which headphone hardware feature will help you to improve your front-rear localization when listening to immersive audio? Okay, then please write your question in the chat, not to me, but to everybody, because Detlef is going to check the right answer. So what's new with Xstream? Tobias is now going to present the latest Xstream features.
Yes, thank you, Virginie, for the handoff. And of course, thank you to everyone who joined this webinar, for showing up today, for showing interest. And yeah, in this section, I would like to talk about a little bit about Xstream in general terms, for those of you who are maybe not as familiar yet with our company and our solutions. But the special focus is specifically on what has happened since our last Post-IBC webinar, so basically a year ago, because there's a lot of new features that would be good to talk about. Right. Before I actually go through this little table here, just a few more details on Xstream, again, for those of you who are new to us. So Xstream is, of course, our core software solution, as Detlef has mentioned, installable on just about any kind of hardware, based on a Linux kernel, but the distribution is custom built by us, in fact. Of course, it is also a solution that we are constantly and dynamically develop, often based on customer requests, based on specific projects. We're very project-driven, in fact, on what we develop and implement, which of course also means that if you have customers or are a customer who is interested in new features, that, to be fair, there's not much we don't do at this point, but if there's something, or if there's a very specific requirement, then I'm sure we can help with that, as long as it pertains to audio encoding, transport, recording, logging, etc. Right. As for the table that you're looking at right now, this is just a few highlights, or the major highlights of the things that we have added since last year. The actual list, of course, including things like quality of life improvements, specific application specific improvements, bug fixes, and so on, is of course much longer, but we will give you a chance to see that as well here in a moment. So taking it from the top, most important perhaps, and this actually came out just around the time of the last IBC, we were actually already talking about it, but it's definitely worth iterating, especially since we have done a lot of improvements on this since last year, is that we now support playlist scheduling, with which we specifically mean we have audio files that we place in a playlist, or that you create a playlist for based on multiple audio files, and we can play them out for just about any kind of use case. In this case, we initially developed this specifically for audio streaming, where instead of like a proper, quote unquote, proper live schedule, we have a playlist schedule that plays out over 24/7 and so on. And most importantly, perhaps, with this playlist scheduling came the option to connect to external scheduling solutions. For example, Music Master. So Xstream can now take existing music schedules that have been created in solutions like Music Master and others via API, and then realize them in our solution for encoding and transport and so on. That's number one. Also related to streaming is the function that we call the HLS transfer catch-up. Behind that name is actually a unique feature that, at least as far as I'm aware, is very much unique to us currently. To explain this, I have to expand this a little bit more. So imagine you're running a 1+1 online streaming setup using HLS or Dash streaming. Now, what happens is that one of your system fails for whatever reason. Maybe there's like a power loss at the site or some network issue, whatever. Of course, one of the main features with HLS, or which makes it very valuable for the listeners, is of course the ability to time shift, because you have like this segment list that the listener loads, and in which they can jump back to, listen like what happened like 5 minutes ago, for instance. So of course, what this means, though, when a system that has failed comes back, is they don't actually have a proper segment list yet, because they're only starting to rebuild it as the stream continues. Which means that if a listener then enters the stream and they happen to be set to, the stream that is coming from the system that has failed, they wouldn't actually have the full time shifting in that moment, which of course can cause consternation in the listener and so on. So we developed a technology that actually replenishes the time shift length much more quickly by taking segments back from the CDN to, more quickly rebuild the playlist basically into the past, as it were. And this is something we developed this year. Next up, demuxing is, of course, something we've already supported. What is new is that we can actually receive an IP EDI stream and demux this for monitoring and format conversion. So this is in addition to what we've already been able to do in the past. So like MPEG-TS for DVB, and for example, actual DAB signals from the air, FM from the air, and so on. So EDI is another format that we now support for demuxing. Maybe interesting to note, although this is of course not a demux case, it is important to note that we can also transport an EDI without touching it via, for example, SRT. Then we implemented more, or widened, our support for PCI Express audio interfaces. This is in so far important and noteworthy that for a time we didn't actually support Dante audio interfaces, like actual Dante hardware, which we now again do support, because we have found audio interface solutions that actually do have the required Linux drivers. But it's not just Dante, there's also other, like especially analog audio interfaces that are very interesting for various use cases that we now support as well. Smooth delay adaptation is a fairly specific feature, but it's also something that came from a customer request. So effectively, well, we already supported, of course, adding audio delay for, syncing and so on. But the customer wanted specifically a seamless adaptation, meaning that instead of an abrupt change of the audio buffer was supposed to slowly, steadily increase, specifically so you can adjust the delay relatively seamlessly during, for instance, a live production, for example, to adjust the audio-video syncing there. Wi-Fi config, this was, of course, mostly in the, as far as the development of fernReport goes, that we support more things there. XHE AAC encoding is also something we have been supporting for quite a while already, but over this year, we have been in close contact with Fraunhofer about sort of straightening out our implementation according to their requirements, which then also culminated in us getting officially qualified via their XHE AAC trademark program. So meaning that if you have any interest in XHE AAC encoding for your use cases, we are definitely now qualified as a premier solution for that sort of encoding. Next up, file uploader. So file uploading was also something we have supported for a long time, usually for like audio logging use cases where you record something and immediately want to create an external backup of this. What is new about this is that you can intentionally trigger it without it being like locked to a specific pipe or a stream that is running. So you can also upload things later. Next one is also very interesting, I think, and also showcase the freedom we have when it comes to integrations, is that we have fully integrated Timeo's stereo tool solution into Xstream. This means there's now a pipe element, as you've seen earlier, for stereo tool that you can put into your pipes, and you actually configure it in a separate tab, which actually shows you the actual stereo tool interface. So those of you who are already familiar with that will probably enjoy it because you have the full breadth of stereo tool options available there. And then, yeah, you can use that for all the audio processing features of stereo tool up to and including micro MPX encoding as well. So this is, of course, also very interesting for studio transmitter linking use cases. And next up, multi-client WebRTC. This is also mainly a monitoring thing that multiple clients can listen into the same pipe and the same audio connection via WebRTC, almost like a conference, although, of course, they are not meant to talk to each other. Next up is also a very interesting and I believe unique feature that we now have. We call this an AOAP demux. Of course, it is not technically a demux, but it describes actually the functionality pretty well. So imagine you're receiving a huge bundle, let's say, of AES67 streams as one as one connection, basically. Let's talk like 128 channel AES67 stream. And you also want to output these individual streams to different outputs, maybe like 2 or 4 channels at a time or something like that. Of course, a lot of existing encoders, decoders would struggle with that because they would effectively have to mix down this 128 channel bundle multiple times. So we came up with a way to effectively take apart this bundle, and then you can, for example, take it apart once and then use the individual channels however you need to for multiple outputs and so on. And last but not least, and this is actually the newest feature we have, we introduced some additional functionality for low delay audio, for an option that sort of forces a very low audio buffer. This is, of course, not recommended for every use case, but if low delay is a major concern for you, this might be very interesting to try. Right, and on next page, we'll see. As I mentioned, this is only a few highlights that we had developed over the last year. But you might be interested in looking into the whole changelog, perhaps even to the past, especially if you're new and want to see how things have been developing over the years even. So recently, we actually began setting up a knowledge base wiki. So this is partially including things like an alternative way to access our documentation, guides, that sort of thing, helpful tips and so on, but also is, of course, a way for us to collect information like change logs and similar things. It is still under construction, especially the sort of the transplant of our technical documentation, but it is constantly growing. And if you would like to have a look, there's the URL and, of course, much more conveniently, also a QR code to quickly get to our changelog. And from there, of course, you can also explore the rest of our knowledge base and see what we're offering there. All right, then quickly talking, because of course this is a post-IBC webinar, about what we actually did at the IBC specifically. That was very interesting. We had an actual demo set up this year, but, very much similar to the features or the things we talk about in the headline of this particular webinar. The focus was, of course, on AI voice moderation, generation, 3D audio, which is to say immersive audio, and radio scheduling as well, and to a lesser degree also the loudness, though this wasn't particularly part of this demo setup. So effectively what we did is we had headsets with head trackers connected to a solution that actually does the binaural rendering based on the head tracker information. And we had multiple streams running, or multiple audio files actually available in stereo, surround, and immersive audio, which is say 5.1.4 in that case. And people were able to switch live between those different versions of those tracks, while of course having the headset on, including the head tracker. So they got to feel firstly what the difference is, or how it feels to listen in stereo versus immersive audio, for instance, and also enjoy the head tracking, especially during the immersive section, so that while you're moving your head, the spatial or the imagined spatial location of the signals actually stayed the same. So it was a very natural sort of way of experiencing sound there. And this was enriched by these AI features where we used existing AI engines to turn prompts that the visitors could also write actually there into moderation pieces that you could also include into the scheduling. So like our default was that the moderator talks about the weather in Amsterdam and announces the next song. And you could, of course, also set the intended duration for the moderation, and also manually adjust the prompts if you wanted to. So this was basically our way of showing the potential of the future of radio, as we called it. So lots of features that are coming or that might be coming in the near future to further improve radio and keep it up to date and modern. So as a bit of a hands-on example of this. Right, and with that, I would like to give back to Virginie for the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Tobias, for this update. If you like to get a personalized demo, please contact Tobias. He will be happy to schedule one. Let's move now to Ferncast next generation loudness control technology. Bernd Geiser is going now to highlight the benefits of our loudness control, and he will share the latest use case. Bernd, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Virginie. So yes, hello everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our loudness control tool. We took the opportunity because you see we won that nice award, and thought it's worth on reiterating and talking about it a little bit again. And there's of course some new things. So yes, on the next slide I have the introduction there. So we have the loudness control tool in our aixtream software for a while now. It's has been released with version 3.7. Now we are in version 3.9, which will be coming very soon. Yes, the tool is at the moment pre-processing files, so it's totally file-based, which for the time being, of course, precludes or excludes live streams from being processed, but that's a thing that will come at some time. But on the other hand, you will see that it's the big advantage, because looking at the entire file gives the tool much more freedom and gives much higher quality and less artifacts. So yeah, to use it, plug it into the file processing of Xstream. So if you're processing entire files in a pipe, for example, via our on-demand podcasting production system, and you just have to select a preset and give your target loudness and loudness units and peak. That's everything you need to know. And yeah, and then there are presets you have to select. So how aggressive is the algorithm, or do you want certain properties? So we have a couple of presets, and they have been tuned by sound engineers. So we have been working with well-known people from the radio industry, which helped us out there in finding focusing on characteristics there. And okay, yeah, so that's the way to go. And if you really want to dive into the nitty-gritty details, we of course do have the profile creation tool, so you can tune every detail by yourself, and that's shown on the next slide actually. So you can load an example file and tune every parameter, so that's not everything shown here. But what will fall out is a preset which you can load into Xstream, and you can use your own preset for loudness processing. And yeah, here in the graph, actually, what is quite interesting, and you really see the advantage of the loudness processing tool, is the last graph, this correction gain. There you see as the orange line, the first stage we do in the processing is a leveling to reach the target loudness. And you see that the leveling process is not constantly moving, so it does not introduce too many artifacts. Instead, it looks at the entire file and tries to identify certain switch points where you can actually, where it is, where you can expect the least artifacts, let's say, to be produced. So it tries to keep the volume constant for the most of the time, and at that switch points, and there's a change, and that's what you can see here, and that's a big advantage. So, and if you of course amplify, you will get into the limit, into the digital limit and the sample limit, and of course there's also limiting functionality which you can configure in how that works. So that's the second step. Okay, yes, and yeah, the next slide. So just to wrap up, so I talked about leveler and limiter. One key point there is that we have 4 parameter sets for different operating points. So the audio signal is classified into one of the 4 parameter sets, and a set that matches the particular audio segment is chosen and applied. And so that's, I think, a very nice advantage, so that the aggressive processing is not applied to a file which doesn't require it, for example. But that runs automatically. Yeah, and then once you have classified the file and the algorithm is running, there's internally an iterative optimization process going on, and it's trading off the obviously loudness, the true peak, but also the loudness range, which is evaluated in the process. Yes, and the result is that you get a very nice experience of loudness even for long pieces, because they're analyzed as a whole. And even if they have dynamically diverse parts, let's say, you get a consistent experience. So the softest part is kept the softest, and the medium part, mezzo forte, is kept at that level, and the forte part is forte still in the levels 1. So That's a very consistent thing, and yeah, our customers like that so far. Good. Yeah, talking about customers on the next slide, I guess we have a statement. You can read it by yourself. Where the biggest use case we had so far for the loudness control. So there are hundreds of thousands of files which have been pre-processed with the loudness tool for classic radio, a German private broadcaster, and maybe a colleague can post the link. They do have this their free select stations, as they call it, and there you can listen actually to the effect of our loudness tools. So there is material from various classical music genres, but also jazz, rock, and also yeah, some voice pieces where people also choir, but also talking. So very diverse, and you can switch through the catalog of their stations, and you see that the loudness experience is very uniform across the entire catalog, and that's very nice. Yeah, so that's the status so far. I want to briefly talk about what will come in the future regarding the loudness tool, and the motivation to develop that further comes from, yeah, we have seen that actually the workflows in radio stations and the industry differ vastly, and of course you know that. And the first choice for us is to have the loudness control integrated into our aixtream in the pipe and in the podcast producing, but we know that this does not fit everyone's workflow. So obviously there are other demands to be fulfilled, and therefore we are working on releasing the loudness processing tool as a standalone tool, so you can integrate that tool into your workflow if you have the interfaces for that, or we can also help out connecting the interfaces if needed. So that's a standalone thing, and there is ongoing effort to integrate that tool into other authoring or production environments which are relevant in the industry. Yeah, that's a thing where you will see it maybe in the future. Yes, and another effort is to bring that loudness processing closer to the real time. That's ongoing with us, so there will be news at some time on how to apply loudness processing for real-time live signals. Yes, I guess that wraps it up for me, and I'll give it back to Virginie. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bernd, for your presentation. And let's dive now into immersive audio experience with Tobias.
Yeah, thanks again, Virginie. Yeah, so I will talk a little bit about immersive audio, specifically immersive audio for radio. So very quickly, first, of course, I want to clarify what I mean with immersive audio. We're talking here about more than surround, that is to say, full 3D audio experiences. So this is 5.1.4, 7.1.4 experiences, or at the very, if they're not exactly using those channels, at least experiences that sort of simulate a similar experience. So of course you might be familiar with things like Dolby Atmos encoding, MPEG-H encoding, and so on. This is the stuff we're talking about here. Now, first you would ask yourself, okay, what if you're particularly familiar with listening on radio and so on, is why should I care about 3D audio for radio? Of course, yeah, it makes sense if you're sitting in your home theater and your home cinema to watch like a Dolby Atmos stream, for example, on Netflix or Amazon Prime and so on. But people usually don't sit at home in their home cinema for radio listening and so on. So, of course, it's very important that we're focusing on headphones, especially, which of course can render immersive experiences almost as well, but also things like car immersive. Of course, cars also have all the speakers, and as you may be aware, there are also efforts now from many car manufacturers to more fully support this, like Mercedes-Benz now officially supports Dolby Atmos and so on. So this is definitely something that is developing. Now, specifically because it is still very rare in radio currently, this of course means that having immersive audio, or at least individual programs, if not even a 24/7 immersive program, is a big advantage, a big unique selling point, something very much to advertise. And eventually, as people get more and more immersive content via the streaming, as I just mentioned, for example, eventually people will consider this the normal listening experience, the same way how it was like when people switched from mono to stereo as the standard. So it can be a serious competitive advantage to start early there. A little bit about the technical / biological background, but I'll keep this very short. So why is immersive audio such a more natural way to listen to sounds, to audio, to music, and so on? Is of course because we have, for one thing, 2 ears, and secondly, a very advanced brain, thanks to the evolution, that can use things like the delay between when a sound arrives at your left ear and the right ear, the volume they arrive at it, and also just the sound, the nature of the sound itself, to very clearly determine where a sound is coming from spatially. And of course, this is an experience that definitely not mono and not even stereo really captures with any level of verisimilitude, basically. So immersive audio, of course, tries to rectify this via various technologies and approaches. Actually, we already have some experience with immersive productions. This is actually how we started and got into contact with Dolby, specifically for Dolby Atmos encoding and rendering. This was the $1 Billion Apes series of podcasts from the Deutschlandradio and ZDF, as you can see here, which was also produced in Dolby Atmos. And we started by doing the packaging for the Atmos there. So it's available, of course, in the conventional podcasting formats like HLS and so on. And why we believe in, for example, Dolby Atmos is we want to give our customers a new listening experience, or enable our customers to give their listeners a new listening experience, which of course makes their program more attractive. As I mentioned before, currently still rare, so very much a unique selling point there. And for the customer, that is to say that the radio stations, we have actually found Dolby especially to be a very cooperative partner, very much interested in opening up new potential. So there's also a lot of potential there. So here a quick example of how we actually realize this in our solution aixtream. So you might already be familiar with the pipe concept. Of course, you have also seen an example with Detlef earlier. The thing is, we actually support Dolby Atmos here specifically in multiple ways. Of course, as I mentioned, we can take existing Atmos content, do the proper packaging for whichever web radio format you require, HLS dash especially, and so on, and simply pass it on, basically. We can also encode multi-channel audio as Dolby Atmos, as you would expect. But what is also interesting, and also, of course, important for the for any plans to have like a 24/7 immersive audio radio station, is that we can simply take an existing stereo content and upmix it into a Dolby Atmos format. Now, this isn't quote unquote real Dolby Atmos. Of course, you are not having the full sort of spatial experience, in the sense that you won't hear specific sounds as especially prominent, for example, spatially speaking, but it is still a more immersive audio experience. The way how you hear the sounds is very much more around you instead of inside your head, as it were. So it does make a clear difference, but it's also simply a way to bridge the difference between stereo content and actually properly processed Atmos content. And in fact, you can actually hear this for yourself. We have set up some demo streams that you can listen to via the bit moving player. So Thomas just posted a link or links in the chat that you can use to have a listen. So again, those are Atmos streams. So this may be interesting to experience for yourself. But of course, you will have to use the right players because not all of them support Atmos streaming right now. And a very last note here before we move on, we have also been in contact with other technology providers that have immersive audio formats. So if there's any interest, we can also push those integrations, for example, EpicH. And then switching to our last topic of the day, just a very quick one here at the end, is an update on our fernReport. So those of you who have watched us last year are probably already familiar with the concept of the fernReport. Detlef also mentioned it shortly in the beginning. So the fernReport is actually a generic hardware piece on a so-called Raspberry 3. That's a Raspberry Pi tablet that we install our software on. And it is touchscreen controlled, and we mainly aim it at the reporter and commentary section. So you have like a compact, very affordable device, touchscreen controlled, that you can do like your reporting and commentary on, for example, for sports commentary and so on. You see some technical details here. Last year, we also won a Red Tech Award for this one as well. And we have also sold quite a few units this year, since, of course, the development has mainly finished, though we are still customizing the UI based on customer wishes and feedback. As you can see here, the UI as currently is sort of an emulation of sorts of like a classic hardware reporter codec. But of course, as you can imagine, people want to take advantage of the customizability of the UI, and every company, every customer has a slightly different requirement, so we adjust for that. However, a last thing I wanted to talk about here is also something that we saw over this last year with our first few sales, is that while the fernReport is very much aimed at the reporter and commentary segment, we have actually found customers who simply prefer it as a compact touchscreen controlled way to use regular Xtreme features for various other applications. So this includes customers who actually bought this as OB-WAN devices. So of course, this is also contribution, but slightly different point in the chain. So instead of putting in like a 19-inch rack unit in there, they simply have the fernReport connected to their OB-WAN network there, which they can also operate on the device, you know, instead of having like a classic front panel and so on. Smaller radio stations actually use it for like IceCast streaming, we've also found, as podcast processors. And since we also mentioned the smooth audio delay earlier, there has been a need for the audio video syncing. So they can basically watch the stream or the TV program and then simply have this touchscreen in front of them to, by via their fingertips, adjust the delay in real time effectively. So this is also something we wanted to highlight because it's an interesting development and maybe something to think about for yourself. And with that, I would like to give back to Virginie.
Thanks, Tobias. So the webinar is now coming to the end. But before, let's have a look at the answer of the quiz. I haven't looked in the chat. Detlef, do we have a winner?
Yeah, sure we have. I mean, if we go to the next slide, I mean, the answer is head tracker. So we asked for a specific hardware in addition to the headphone. So there were lots of good answers really, because they were all very much related to the impression you have when wearing headphones and listening to immersive audio, but actually the answer is head tracker. And I think Tobias explained it very well in his slide already. There are intraoral time differences, intraoral differences in the level. And then, of course, you have the HRTF, which is the spectral shape cues you need. And what we do always is we, even you don't see it so much, there are slight movements of the head, and that helps a lot by localization, for localization, and in particular, the front-rear localization. So the head tracker is really helping and is giving it to another level of experience. And there's lots of movement in that. I mean, we know the Apple with the AirPods now and head tracking, and more, I think, will probably also come to personalized HRTFs where you make photos and you have some 3D photos you can do of your ears to optimize the sound. So we have a winner, and the winner is, Virginie, is Enrico. So congratulations, you gave the answer head tracking. Yes.
Bravo, Enrico.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was easy because Tobias said just a minute before I write.
Yeah, sometimes it's just good to listen.
But you still have to pay attention. And
yeah.
And we had a head tracker at the IBC.
Yeah. I tested it. It's fantastic. It's amazing.
Yeah, it raised a lot of interest at the IBC. Great. So we have the answer. We have a winner. Bravo. So we are now coming to the end. Do we have still some question in the chat, or would you like to unmute you if you, because we still have a few minutes before 11, if somebody has a question for Tobias or Bernd.
Sorry. No, I just want to ask something about the WebRTC application, because you said that you can have multiple audio via WebRTC, but can you also make a one-to-one communication with using WebRTC?
yes, absolutely. So we had the WebRTC source and sync in for a while. The only limitation currently is that to connect, you need a web platform from us or our web platform, basically to host the WebRTC server there. That's the only limitation. But otherwise, of course, you can do communication one-to-one or bidirectional, as the case may be. Maybe interesting to note, right now we are actually in talks with some other providers of WebRTC solutions, especially also for the contribution, or that are famous for contribution solutions in that area. And there may soon be news on that end, but that's all I can say right now.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Dejan asked for more details on the head tracker. I'm not entirely sure.
There is, I think, something also in preparation. So maybe Dejan, we can do this also as a follow-up in writing. We actually didn't think about it so much when we did the demo at IBC, but we got a request. There is sometimes the requirements for some specific radio shows in sports that they have to monitor maybe a variety of games at the same time. So we got that requirement. So we really wanted to show the future of radio, and it was more like the newest in our development and research. But there is a request of also to listen to, let's say, a few games simultaneously, and there is interest to use the head tracker headphone from us for that purpose, so you can have a game in front, a game on the left, on the right, and you know where the activity is in order maybe to do operational things and switch to a certain game on air and live. So there will be some more information, and we could provide that to you, Dejan, of course.
maybe one more interesting thing to note on this. So of course, for the purpose of our demo setup, we had some additional hardware that we attached to the headsets to basically as the sensors for the head tracking to identify the movements of the headphones and so on. However, there are already consumer level headphones that have inbuilt head tracking. Not many yet. As far as I'm aware, it's only Apple products so far, but that could be wrong. Nonetheless, it's definitely a technology that is also being explored on the consumer level. And of course, if this is something that continues developing, then this is something we would love to support in Xtreme as well, as far as the encoding and metadata is concerned.
Yeah, thanks, Tobias, for this explanation. And Detlef, of course, if you would like to get more info, please contact Tobias. He's always available for you. And visit our new website. We have just refreshed our website, ferncast.com, with much more information on different applications and use cases. Please have a look. So we'd like to thank you again for your time, your participation. I wish you a nice day, and we will send you the recording of the webinar, and hopefully see you soon in our next webinar.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Goodbye.
Nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.